What have we seen from the quarterbacks and running backs for Oregon football this spring? We'll discuss with Rian Winter of Sports Chat 503 his thoughts and analysis on Bo Nix, Ty Thompson, and all the ball carriers each guy could be handing off to this fall. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, D1 play-by-play broadcaster, and most importantly, lifelong Oregon Ducks fan. Thank you for making this your first listen or your first view if you're watching on YouTube every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks every single weekday. We're free and available on all platforms and, of course, streaming on YouTube, where those of you watching can see I'm not alone today. I've got Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503. You check him out on YouTube as well for some additional commentary on the Ducks. We bring him on every so often because we love his insight, and that is exactly what he's going to provide today. Ryan, let's just hop right in, man. I want to start with the quarterbacks, and obviously it's great to see you as always and have you back here on the show. Let's start with the quarterbacks here. And when you look at the spring game and the totality of spring football this year, you've got Bo Nix as, I think, the clear leader in the clubhouse going into fall camp when the guys get back on the practice field in August, I believe. And then you have Ty Thompson and you have Jay Butterfield, and they look still a little rough around the edges. Thompson still has the big arm and the size, but Butterfield maybe a little bit more accurate right now. I've seen some chatter from Duck fans who think that Butters has maybe surpassed Ty Thompson on the depth chart, at least in their eyes. But what have you seen from each of the signal callers Oregon has on the roster right now?
Yeah, well, I think Bo Nix is the natural number one just because of his experience. We all know that transfers aren't going to come out here to sit the bench. I do think, though, that Jay Butterfield had a good day. I really liked what they did with him in the spring game where they allowed him to play on both sides. He threw an interception and went right to the other side like he was the all-time quarterback at recess in middle school, which is kind of a fun situation. So he got to be able to get to a lot of different receivers. This offense is going to throw the ball. They proved that. In the first two plays on either side, they both threw the ball deep. I thought Ty had a pretty good day. When I went back and watched the tape, when I walked out of the stadium, it felt like it was Bo Nix because he had that first big play to 7, and then he had that last play at the end. He had another touchdown right in the fourth, and so it was this kind of a situation where he kind of walked out thinking, well, it was much better day for him. When he went back and watched the tape, he had plays that he missed just as easily, and there was more pressure, it felt like, on Ty than on Bo as well. Bo had a little cleaner pocket, and the way that they broke that offensive line up, you'd expect that, but I think, I've said this from the moment he transferred over I was like, I know, Duck fans, you're ready for Ty Thompson and everybody's got their, wish list and everything of who they want to play, but you got to let this thing play out. You got to let competition happen. And this is a guy that could make the rest of the room better. They've all said that. They've all ingratiated him into the offense and into that room. And I think it's a really nice situation for them. Ty Thompson is a hell of an athlete. He looks the part. He's taller. He's faster. He's got the better arm. He's got the better spin rate. They've got science on all this stuff now. And he just maybe has to let the game slow down a little bit. And he said they wanted to match his eyes and his feet, and he was just a little jittery, maybe a little too quick with his footwork and just trying to get the ball out. And this is an offense that wants the quarterback to act fast. So they're asking him to do that. It's just whether or not it's actually fast and precise. So they got a lot of room to grow, but it was exciting. The spring game was a heck of a day. So it was nice to see that for sure.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Ty Thompson is you can't get rid of the physical traits, right? We all know that they're there. We've all seen them before. We know that the potential is there. I think he's clearly got the highest ceiling of any of these three guys, right? Because Bo Nix, even if he is a better quarterback than what he was at Auburn, I still think that when you look at the totality of what Ty Thompson is capable of, yeah, he could be a better player than Bo Nix one day. But is he better than Bo Nix right now? No, I think the answer is pretty clearly no. And I'm sure the Oregon coaches have seen that in practice. And he did show some improvement from what we saw last year, in the spring game and also in live game action from Ty. But he's still clearly got a long way to go. I mean, this was a practice environment, and I'm glad you pointed out Bo Nix was by no means perfect. He was 8 of 15 passing.
Yeah.
That's not great,
And
right?
bad interception.
Yeah,
Real
yeah,
bad interception.
and the bad interception too. But Ty had a couple interceptions that also looked like freshman mistakes, and he was 12 of 27 passing in a spring game. An environment that tends to cater more heavily to the offense. I think it's a pretty clear indication that I understand Duck fans want him to be ready because he looks like the next great Oregon quarterback, but he is not that yet. And I think rush if you rush him to the field, you risk a Braxton Burmeister situation where he never had a chance to succeed at Oregon because he clearly never should have been on the field. And so he left. He went to Virginia Tech, and he's been just okay. But I don't think that he was given the best chance, and so I don't want to see that from Ty Thompson.
Oh, absolutely. And any person who's played athletics, who's been a coach, they want to be on the field and have a place to be successful. I mean, and that's the number one goal for a coach. So you didn't want to put him out there last year. I thought it was a little unreasonable that a lot of the fans were making such an issue about having him play. And I've always been of the mindset that you let the freshmen sit, you redshirt them, you give them an extra chance to be there, you let them mature physically, mentally, let them acclimate to college life, let them figure out how to do their own laundry. I mean, there's so much stuff that these kids have to figure out what they're doing that freshman year. Add a whole playbook and the whole responsibility to go get to the championship. That's the other thing. I don't understand how the Duck fans out there, and this is not just Duck fans. This is across the country. This is everybody. But this idea that you want to try to have the freshmen start and win a national championship at the same time. They're like, well, you see what's going on here or there. Well, it doesn't always pan out there. So I like Ty. I think he's a great player, but I kind of feel bad for him a little bit. I feel like there's been so much hype and so much put on him that he can't just go out there and be a freshman and play and figure the thing out. And even when Bo came in, there was another whole wave of pressure that came in from the audience saying, oh, now what are you going to do? Everybody's in his DMs. Everybody's commenting. Everybody's trying to get a piece of him. And, it's the nature of the beast with the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks want it. But there's no problem with these guys starting as like a sophomore or junior. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know what happened in college football that all of a sudden now it's just expectation that you play on day one. It's like, come on, man, especially a quarterback room. A lot of times there's 6 or 7 guys in there. There's walk-ons in there that are probably better than the guys coming in as freshmen because they've been around the weight room for 3 or 4 years. They've been on the meal program. They've been through practice every day. They've been the scout team starting quarterback for a year. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that. I mean, again, I always go back to the fact, LaMichael James on the scout team, okay, one of the best running backs of all time, was on a scout team as a freshman. Let the man age a little bit. Let them transition a little bit. And I do think it was a little much that they had put that on because it also added to the hate of Anthony Brown. Instead of actually supporting the quarterback that you knew was going to play until he got hurt, he was going to play. They weren't pulling him. And instead, you wanted Ty Thompson so bad that you didn't like the guy who was on the field. And you end up booing in the stadium. I mean, that was... So I do think that we're in a new era where I think you've got the hierarchy, right? You got the junior that feels like a senior. You've got the sophomore that feels like a junior. And you've got your freshman that feels like a sophomore, okay? And now you've got them lined up. There's no reason to say that Jay Butterfield shouldn't be the second guy. He's got an extra year. He's got an extra ability to kind of throw the ball in a different setting than those other guys. He's a pro-style guy. When they said pro-style, that's the guy you have already on the... And he was a heck of a recruit. So these guys are all good recruits. And you're going to bring in another guy next year. And another one. And another one. So be prepared for this conversation to continue.
Yeah, I think that it's a pretty fair way of looking at it. I will say that the one area where I'll agree with fans is Ty should have played at least some in the bowl game.
That I agree.
Yeah, I don't think there was any reason. There was nothing to be gained of playing Anthony Brown the entire game. It's a different matter when you're talking about playing a true freshman who's, obviously not ready to see the field when you're trying to compete for a conference championship. And yes, the limitations last season became clear pretty obviously, or pretty quickly, I should say, with Anthony Brown there. But the ceiling for that team was still highest with Anthony Brown rather than Ty Thompson. Not the Ty Thompson that we hope to get one day, the Ty Thompson that we had last year. He was clearly not ready to play because he still doesn't look ready to play, and that's okay. Marcus didn't play his first year. Marcus didn't take a single snap, not a single one. And Herbert came in midway through the year as a freshman, but that was on a terrible team. They were only willing to do that because that team was going nowhere, so they had nothing to lose. Even after the first loss to Utah and Oregon fans were clamoring for Anthony Brown to be benched, which I understood because he did some really frustrating things last year from a fan's perspective. Like, I'm not denying that. But even after that first loss to Utah, Oregon still had a chance to win a Pac-12 championship and go to the Rose Bowl game. You're not going to get rid of that opportunity to get a young freshman quarterback some playing time. It's not reasonable. And I think that, patience here is a virtue. And I really think that playing the quarterback position more than any other, you have to have time to develop. And we need to give that to Ty Thompson. I agree with you 100% on the hype train is that, I don't know how these kids can handle that sort of stuff because I remember what I was like at 18, 19, and I wasn't going to be able to do that. You know what else I can't handle, Duck fans? Being hungry because Built Bars are the best ways. Sorry, Ryan, I had to sneak that in
perfect.
there. Perfect. But we got to pay for the show here, and you should pay for Built Bars because you can get 15% off with the promo code LOCK15 at built.com. That's LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Great flavors, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. Go check out Built Bars today. We're just in this age of instant gratification. I think that's what it is first and foremost is people want, they want it now. They don't want to wait because this is an entire generation that's grown up trained on social media. And what is social media? Instant gratification. And that's why I think, people who are a little bit older like you are willing to be more patient in that front. But
I also just think that recruiting has exploded. So these guys now are known coming out of like middle school, high school. The freshmen, these guys know each other. The people who love recruiting, they've known about these kids for like 4 years before they even step on campus. They're like ready. They think they're the next thing versus like for me, I usually don't hear about these guys until they basically are now. Obviously, it's easier to follow all of it, but I pretty much followed him once they got the Duck uniform. Once they put the number on, oh, that's him. Okay, let's learn his backstory. You got a year or so, figure it out. If he gets playing time in the future, then you start to really know the kids. These guys know everything. They are hyped. Now it's a social media era where everything's going. Now these guys are getting NIL deals before they even get on campus.
Yeah, no, it's completely shifted the paradigm of recruiting. And I'll ask you about recruiting here in just a sec. But I want to ask you about the running backs as well, because Bucky Irving comes in now from Minnesota. He's the second transfer ball carrier for the Ducks this year that Carlos Lachlan has brought in, the running backs coach, along with Noah Whittington from Western Kentucky. So they join a group that features Byron Cardwell. A lot of Duck fans expect him to be the one. I'm totally fine. I love Byron Cardwell. Loved what we saw from him last year. But I will maintain that I think of all of these guys who I like for different reasons, Sean Dollars is the most physically gifted one that I've seen. We haven't seen a ton from him, but I think when you watch the small number of carries he's had, he's shown the most explosion and the greatest physical traits. That doesn't mean he's the best running back per se, because there are a lot of things that go into that. You have to be able to catch passes. You have to be able to pass protect. You have to be able to have good vision, let your blocks develop. Cardwell does that very, very well. So what do you expect now from Oregon's ball carriers looking into this fall, Ryan, now that Bucky Irving is in there in a position that immediately going into the offseason, Oregon fans didn't have any questions. We've got Travis. We've got CJ. Trey Benson is there. Cardwell looks really good. And then all of those guys leave except for Cardwell. And so then there were just a shocking number, a shockingly low number of guys who are listed as running back on the roster. Not a surprise to see him bring these transfers in. What do you make of that position right now for Oregon?
I love the running back room right now, and I like that the transfers have come in. I think Noah Whittington was really, really good in the spring game.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and strong, fast vision, just like you said, But I agree with you. I think this is Sean Dollars' year to shine. I think he's got the biggest chip on his shoulder, coming off of injury. A lot of times these guys talk about how the injury is very good for them to kind of get introspective, lets the game kind of slow down for him, let him see it from a different perspective, still, consuming a lot of tape and watching a lot of film. Byron Caldwell is just solid. I mean, he's just a solid dude. I mean, he is just, and his dad, shout out to the Twitter Spaces. His dad's been in Twitter Spaces, for now, a couple months, just quality family. A lot of the people got together. Byron was there, just with his family, having dinner with all these other people who were, fanning out or whatever. And he's just a solid guy. He's not really about himself. He's really a team guy, but he's just a really classic running back. I think that's the nice thing about this room is that you've got some really prototype running backs. Kilohana Hassenritter, he played quite a bit in the spring game too. I thought you'd see more Aaron Smith. I was really impressed with him last year. But yeah, there's not that many guys in the room right now, and that's fine. I mean, I think going forward, I don't think that's really necessarily that big of an issue because you you're in this offense, especially you're on one back set. So, these guys have to share carries. And I think Noah Whittington is just awesome. But man, putting on the tape, dude, of Bucky, boy, I like what I see there, man. Whoo, as a true freshman, getting yardage and just I love there's it could be also their scheme as well, but I feel like when the play broke down, he had a really good ability to bounce around, find a hole, find a seam, get extra yardage, and yards after contact. He's strong, but I think there's a lot of guys in this room right now that are just absolute prototypes, and I don't know if Sean Dollars is the prototype. I think Sean Dollars is more maybe of a guy who with his athletic ability, I think he can do a lot of different things. You said pass catching. I think that's what he might have did best when he gave the first offering. And I've had conversations with Sean over the years and his family as well, talking with his mom at spring game. I was sitting right in a group with the parents and whatnot. And dude, his family is so nice, man. And Sean Dollar's mom is just awesome. And they all were saying that this is the year. And the spring game was a big deal for him because he wanted to go out there and really showcase what he had. I don't know if this offense is going to utilize him the way the previous offense did. I think they're going to be more pass heavy, but he's going to have a major part in this thing. So I'm excited. Either way, with injuries or without injuries, this room is going to produce.
Yeah, and the single back set is, something we've seen a lot from Oregon the last couple of years. I can't even think of maybe a small handful of plays during the Mario Cristobal era where Travis Dye and CJ Verdell were on the field at the same time. And
rarely, ever.
I think that what we saw from Dillingham in the offense in the spring game gave us, a little peek into what we should expect this fall with him as our offensive coordinator. He's a first-time play caller, of course, but I don't know if we showed everything. I hope there are some two-back sets. Or in fact, I know that we didn't show everything there. And I hope there are some two-back sets because, if you have Bo Nix in the backfield with Byron Cardwell and Sean Dollars, or maybe you line up, a motion 7 McGee into the backfield the way that Chip used to do with DeAnthony or with Kenyon Barner as well. I mean, there are a lot of different options there, and I would like to see that utilized again because I was a fan of that look, and you can do a lot of different things from it in both the running game and the passing game because these guys are really versatile. I'll ask you about Yeah, I want to ask you about recruiting, but first I have to tell you all. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto, and I don't have to tell you that. I get to tell you that because you get to save time and money when using Rock Auto. I don't know why you would choose to spend 30, 50, or 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers and saving them money for over 20 years, and all you need is a computer. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts they have available for your car or truck, right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. All right, Ryan, let's move to recruiting here. And Oregon got a commitment this week from 2023 four-star wide receiver Jurrion Dickey from Valley Christian High School, who shows a lot of good things. And Josh Connerly was probably the biggest commitment that the Ducks have had in the last couple of weeks. You have Kyler Casper in there as well. And they've got 3 recruits now who have committed verbally in the class of 2023. One of them is Demetrius Martin's son, Cole, a highly rated 4-star cornerback, by the way, from the state of Arizona. I think a lot of people might hear like, oh, he's just a coach's kid who wants to go play for dad. And then you look at the 24/7 rating, you're like, well, if that's the case, then all right, I'm on board. What do you make of the recruiting victories Oregon has seen as of late, and what that says about the staff's potential?
Well, I like it, and I like what the kids have said. A lot of people have been doing a lot of great work out there on YouTube, interviewing guys, interviewing prospects. One of my favorite guys, Max Torres, is
Max
locked in. Max is the man, and Max was actually live at the high school when Jurrion Dickey announced just the other day, and so yeah. I just love the enthusiasm of this coaching staff. What a lot of the guys are saying is, I was maybe a little hesitant, before, Oregon's on the list, but not like it is now. And this coaching staff is doing some different things. They're introducing, I think, kind of a little bit bigger opportunity at Oregon than maybe previously was. I don't know if the previous staff, we talked about during the time when the coaching search was going on, like how this was going to impact recruiting. And everybody was concerned that, Mario's such a good recruiter. We're going to lose out on this great recruiting. But, now you got people who coming in, they might be staying here. There's some real West Coast connections on this staff. And there's a lot of really, really good recruiting going on. I mean, Junior Adams been mentioned numerous times in his abilities, and plucking him from the Huskies when he was one of the only guys that they kept on that staff. I mean, that's saying something. So I really like where this is going. It's not a big class right now in the 2023 class, and I'm not like a recruiting expert by any stretch. So I'll just put that caveat out there. I'm a season ticket holder. I go to the games. I'm a fan, but man, I'm telling you, the recruiting is very fun to stay involved with throughout this downtime. When the off season's happening, when the spring season's happening, and now you're in this kind of different time with NIL and everything else. I think it's awesome to be a fan. I think there's so much going on. It's super exciting. And I think that's what Oregon's really tapping into, the excitement of the brand and the capabilities and the possibilities that they're presenting with Division Street and all these other little angles of which they're able to kind of contend in the NIL space. And I think a lot of these kids are now looking at Oregon as, one, good place to play football, two, great facilities, but three, unique opportunities specific to Oregon, whether they're connected to Nike or connected in some way, shape, or form. And seeing guys go out like Kayvon, who is already, they're saying, has the most endorsements of anybody in this class, of coming into the NFL draft, going to New York. Are you kidding me? He's going to absolutely kill it. And so I think that the next generation of kids are going to just see that progression and still see some really quality players coming up. I think that's the other big thing, and we talk about what makes a recruit come to a school. I always joke that it was playing time and the girls on campus. I think now we say it's still playing time, but I think now it's also about who else is playing with me. This is kind of the AAU aspect. I coached AAU for a long time. I coached youth sports for a long time. That idea of now we're kind of doing the super teams, right? We're all partnering up and we're all going across platform to all play with each other. And, basically doing what would be tampering in the pro sports is players just like, hey, where are we going to play next year? Like, let's get the band back together. Let's go play here. Let's go play there. And I think that's a unique thing. So I think recruiting kind of builds on itself. Like, I do think that a lot of the conversation around Connerly started earlier with some of those decommits from Washington and Dave Ulley, the other guys in his ear. Those guys were like, come on, let's do this. Because the recruits want to be a part of something special. They want to either build the brand or get the first national championship. That's the big carrot right now for Oregon recruits. They want to be a part of something special, and they want to do it together as a group. And I think that, my dad's always talked about how, in the past, you could get a 1 or 2 recruiting classes every once in a while, but you couldn't really stack them together. And now Oregon's in a situation where they're coming off the Mario Cristobal era where they did stack a couple 3 together. Mario talked about that when he left. Now you're adding the Dan Lanning era. And this team's still super young. Most of this team's all sophomores and freshmen. So I really like the recruiting. I love the youth aspect of this. I think the coaching, wearing the shoes and all that sort of stuff, embracing the culture of Nike, embracing what we're doing out here, I think is a game changer.
Adapt or die, as Billy Beane said in Moneyball, portrayed by Brad Pitt, of course. You mentioned AAU, so let's wrap up real quick with a basketball question for you, Ryan. There has been plenty of news. Might have to have you back on here soon to do an all basketball episode, because there have been many things happening. But Keyshawn Bartholomew comes to Oregon. Davion Harmon is leaving Oregon. Big Frank leaves. Dante is staying. We don't know about Will Richardson. Guerrier is back. But what do you make of all the recent news that's been coming out of that camp for Oregon, who also, by the way, lost their director of basketball operations, Josh Jameson, and Chris Crutchfield, an assistant coach in the offseason. They've since replaced the assistant coach. But there's just a lot of moving parts over there. How are you feeling about the Ducks right now for Dana Altman's squad?
I think we're comfortable with the transfer portal. Dana's always been on that level. I think he was early on the transfer portal. And what that could do for a team, how quickly you could rebuild. And again, in basketball, you need is a good solid 7-8 deep, and you can really do some things. Losing Big Frank hurt, man. I really liked, and then going to the Huskies, man, it was like, rarely do I want to let that whole like anti-Husky thing out, because I try to be very professional and sportsmanship like and everything, but that one stung, man.
Yeah.
To go to see him up there in Seattle next year blocking shots against us, because he's going to get his. I do think, though, that they'll be fine. I think that the way Dana has proven that he can get to that 20-win mark, this year was dicey. The wheels kind of fell off a little bit. Dana's getting a little older. He's a little rough. He talks about coaching them hard in practice. It's a grinding coaching staff, and he had such consistency for a long time with his assistant coaches, and now you're starting to see them start to kind of peel off a little bit, do their own thing. And again, that's natural. I think that any successful program is going to have that. That's not a problem, but it's about who do you replace those guys with that you can keep the ball rolling. And basketball wise, I felt like last year was the most un-Dana like team he's ever had.
They were bad on defense. They were bad on defense. They were bad at defense. That has never happened.
Bad at rebounding. Super bad at defense, and they got beat on the boards, and they couldn't hit shots in clutch situations. If you go back in time, that having some good players on the team helps, Dana, right? We all know that as coaches, right? It's all about the Jimmies and Joes. But letting the guys produce and letting the guys score late in a ball game, there was some times this year where it just didn't happen. And, they blamed a lot of it on the inconsistency of the roster and coming off COVID and that sort of stuff. But Dana also kind of really threw these guys under the bus a little bit with the media, saying he's always had to kick guys out of the gym. He never had to kick anybody out of the gym with this group. So they were kind of content at just being average or just being above average. And they thought actually they were probably better than they actually were. And when they got tested, and they were a good team, but and they should have been in the NCAA playoffs. I think that they should have been in March Madness. Had they just kept their act together and beaten Cal. You just win a couple more games.
ASU.
Yeah, and that ASU, they got swept by ASU.
Yeah. How does that happen?
We could just go on and on. That last year was kind of an embarrassment, but I do think they'll put it back together. I love N'Faly Dante. I think his energy's good, and it took him a while to come off the injury, but I think he's going to be good. But I'm really excited for Nate Biddle. I think he played really well at the end of the year, and giving him an opportunity to get more minutes. Losing Frank's going to hurt because I just love his energy and I love what he's about. And losing Davion Harmon too. I think that he could have come back next year and really done some things for Oregon. I thought he had kind of secured a place in the offense, and there were times I felt like he was the best player on the team. There were certain games of the year where he kind of took over at certain points. But they're going to have to find some scoring. They just losing Jacob Young, and if you lose Will, you're talking that's 20, 30 points right there almost on any given night. They're going to need to find some buckets, but they've got some really good guys coming in, man. And the recruiting is really nice right now. So, just going forward, I think they'll be fine. A little bump in the road, but I think long term, I think they'll be fine. Next 5 years at least.
We might have to have you back on for a full-length basketball chat, and we will certainly do it. Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503 is the Twitter handle. It's the YouTube channel as well. Appreciate it as always, Ryan.
Appreciate you, bud.
I appreciate everyone listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.